This is Professor Michael Chapman. I'm one of the most experienced IVF doctors in Australia. I believe that an important part that I can contribute is to educate patients in relation to fertility, infertility, and all that involves. These series of podcasts help to educate you. I hope they are helpful to you. If you wish to know more, however, I'm more than happy to have you contact me via email, which is profmchapman@gmail.com, or make an appointment to see me on 9138 4222.
Prof, we have a question from Christy. She asks, would you unfreeze embryos to PGT test them? Risk of damage. Double freezing, some are day 1 and some are day 5.
Okay. Freezing and refreezing embryos to test them for PGT carries a tiny risk, probably 2% chance of losing an embryo. Now, it depends why you're thinking about having the PGT done as to whether you think that's worthwhile or not. What it does by giving a PGT, if you've got a number of embryos, is to be sure that the embryo that you're putting back is of normal genetic makeup, and therefore increases your chances of conceiving in that particular cycle. That, for instance, if you are 40 years old and you've got 5 embryos, then each of those embryos probably only has about a 10% chance of producing, or maybe, around 10 to 15% chance of producing a baby. If it's genetically tested and it's normal, that jumps to 50%. So it's a massive rise if we can be sure that we're putting back a genetically normal embryo. Now, if you've got 5 embryos, the scientists aren't going to throw out any of them that are good enough to biopsy because they'll be reasonably good embryos. And eventually, if there is a good one amongst those 5, you'll get to it. But you won't know which one it is. And you may go through 4 cycles before you get to the 5th one that might be the lucky one. Alternatively, you might go through 5 and all of those embryos were genetically abnormal and you were just wasting thousands and thousands of dollars on doing it, let alone the emotional cost of going through a cycle and not being pregnant, going through a cycle not being pregnant, going through a cycle and not being pregnant. It shortens the time to get to the right embryo. There's no question of that. Although ultimately you probably get to the right embryo. So that's day 5 embryos. If you've got day 1 embryos or just fertilized embryos, and I know there have been clinics, not so many these days around Australia, where freezing on day 1 was a routine if you got a lot of embryos. Don't quite understand the logic of it, but there are some scientists who thought that was a good thing. They need to be thawed and grown on anyway, because you don't put back a day 1, day 2 embryo these days. So growing those on to day 5s with what is an option, and then deciding whether to genetically test them depends a little bit on how many there are. Generally, I don't biopsy if there's only one good embryo. Nature will take its course one way or another. With your day 1 frozen ones, if you've got 10 of them, you're actually going to expect only 1 or 2 day 5 blastocysts anyway. But that's just a normal pattern of decline in the capacity of embryos to grow in those 5 days. That's a statistic we see in fresh cycles that, if you get 10 eggs and 10 fertilized, you're still only going to end up with 2, maybe 3 embryos at most. So it's not much different. So it comes down as to why you want to have it done. If you're 40 and above, I would definitely do PGT because the percentage of abnormal embryos is high. I mean, at 40 years of age, only 30% of embryos will be normal. 70% will be abnormal. If you're 45, that jumps to 95% of all embryos that look good and are able to be genetically tested. 95% of them will be genetically abnormal. That last 5% gives you some hope if you fall into that lucky category. So I hope that advice helps.
And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website www.theivfjourney.com and select IVF Journey Podcast from the navigation menu.